Welcome to America Salutes. My name is Milt Schoen, and I'm your host, and today we have Andrew Michaelson from Common Bond, and he's the Director of New Business Development for Common Bond. And why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about Common Bond and what it does?
Certainly. Common Bond is a nonprofit housing development organization. We're based in St. Paul, but we operate in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, creating affordable housing for families, seniors, special needs populations, and disability. We've been in business for over 40 years, serving the entirety of those populations. And we've got about 5,000 units of housing and about 8,000 residents that we currently serve.
And one of the reasons you're here today is that you have a very interesting project that you're working on for Upper Fort Snelling to create housing, 56, 58 units for homeless veterans and their families on the upper post of Fort Snelling.
That's correct. So the project came about in 2011. The VA issued an RFP, a request for proposals, identifying 5 buildings at the upper post that could be reutilized in new ways. They're currently within their portfolio of land and buildings, and they would like to see them turned into housing for homeless veterans. So we responded to that RFP and were selected, and we've been moving forward with that process since late 2011.
And this is unique in that the upper post, there's a desire to stabilize the buildings on the upper post. And I know the county's been involved in stabilizing many of the buildings right off of Highway 5. But I believe this is the first transformation of buildings on the upper post. So you're doing something unique with buildings that haven't been occupied for decades.
That's correct. The buildings were all constructed the turn of the 20th century and were used for various military purposes over the course of many, the early part of the 20th century. 2 of them were actually constructed as housing. So we've got a duplex and a fourplex that were non-commissioned officers' quarters. So people did live in them for a number of years, but not since the early 1970s has anyone actually lived there, and they've been sitting essentially vacant since then. The 3 other buildings originally were stables for the cavalry, so thinking about how far back the history of this site goes. And throughout the years have been converted to various other uses, offices. They were used as garages for repairing tanks and jeeps, converted at one point to a veterinary hospital. So the uses have been varied throughout the years, and now we are also stepping into those buildings that haven't been occupied in decades. The roofs are falling apart, and they're sitting in conditions that are otherwise only going to continue to deteriorate. And we're going to rehabilitate them to those historic standards while also creating new units of affordable housing.
Well, that's an exciting proposition. One of the unique things about this project is you're going to be housing both single veterans and families.
That's correct.
And we've been involved with a number of projects, but they've basically been with singles. And so that presents some unique challenges.
It's challenges, and it's also serving a very clearly defined need. If you look at recent reports and studies that have been conducted, yes, there's very clearly a need for individuals, both male and female, who are themselves in need of housing and are currently homeless. But there's also a need, and increasingly so, for women veterans who are experiencing homelessness, who more often than their male counterparts also have children or might be as part of a family unit, and there's a need for that housing. The duplex and fourplex I mentioned before go directly to serve this need. They're 2-bedroom units and 3-bedroom units that were housing before. We're going to clean them up, create new up-to-date housing specifically for that population, in addition to 45 units of efficiency or single housing, and then also 7 1-bedroom units, in addition to all of the common areas and computer labs and all of those sorts of things.
And there are some real challenges, because when you're creating housing for homeless veterans, you have challenges in terms of wanting to make sure that we don't have an infestation of bed bugs. So you will be doing things to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Yes. So the challenges are myriad, of course, but the goal ultimately is so worthwhile that we're willing to take on those challenges. The real estate, of course, it being historic and carrying with it some of the deterioration over the course of years, we're also then able to leverage historic tax credits in addition to some other resources. So it's a benefit to the real estate to have those pieces. But as you mentioned, on the operating side, when we're thinking about the population we're dealing with, they're going to and often show up ready to move in with nothing but the clothes on their back. So we're going to need to have beds and desks and chairs and pots and pans and cleaning supplies, all those things. So we're looking to secure commitments to provide those. We're looking to leverage what monies we do have to purchase beds and make sure that the things we're bringing in are not only quality but also clean and provide that stable footing to get the veterans into housing, get them stabilized and move forward and not have to worry about that.
And this is an interesting project in that the VA provides, uses an enhanced use lease, and they provide you the property for a significant number of years, and they may provide you some funds for remediation of pollution on the site. But in terms of the construction of it, that's something that Common Bond will pay for, and in terms of operations, you will operate it or contract with others to make sure that the services are available to the residents.
That's correct. So the VA has agreed to lease the land to us over a long term, and in exchange for that, we've agreed to provide housing for veterans and to serve them. So the challenges of securing rent subsidy, so ensuring that we can actually operate the real estate, that's one piece. But then, as you mentioned, the need to have services also for those veterans, because we're anticipating a challenging population, oftentimes with dual diagnosis of some sort of chemical addiction as well as a mental health issue, PTSD, traumatic brain disorder, things of that nature. This is not just going to be you put them in a unit and then walk away and hope for the best. We're going to actively engage and partner with the VA, Hennepin County, whomever is already serving these populations, and make sure we're integrating. We've provided space in the project so that we've got offices they can come on site and actually be there so that our veteran residents don't have to go out and look for the services. We're going to do everything we can to bring them all on site.
Very good. And I believe we have a number of renderings of and pictures of what the buildings are, and we'd like to see those slides come up now. As you mentioned, you've got buildings that haven't been occupied for decades. And then we've got some renderings of what the project will look like and the transformation that it'll bring physically to the upper post. And hopefully this will be a place of transformation for the veterans and their families who live there.
Yes, as you can see in the first picture, the buildings are beautiful, but they do need repair. We've got roof issues, windows, gutters, all those sorts of things. But then you can see, as proposed later, we're not only restoring those historical elements, but adding some functionality as far as parking and rehabilitating the exteriors, weatherproofing, all those things to make it not only functional but also beautiful and preserve that historic aspect as well.
And then you do have the asset that, transportation-wise, that you're very close to the light rail.
Yes.
You're in proximity to the VA regional office, and you're also in proximity to the VA Medical Center. So many of these people will be getting their health care at the VA Medical Center, and that is an advantage for this project. It
certainly is. The proximity to the VA Medical Center is key, particularly thinking about connecting the residents with services that the VA provides, but also, as you mentioned, that the light rail is just tremendously useful in getting to the VA, but also getting to downtown Minneapolis, the airport, Mall of America, connecting with jobs, connecting to further transit, getting out beyond the campus and connecting with other health services, dental, what have you. It's an ideal location.
So that these individuals will be connected. They're not going to be separated from society. They will be, essentially, because of the connection with light rail, they'll be connected to our entire region.
Yes, connection both through light rail, but then also through other service organizations and partnerships, and really looking at housing as a first step to stabilizing these individuals in these households, so that if down the line they are no longer in need of this hands-on supportive housing, they can transition to a more sort of standard affordable housing or market rate if they're successful in connecting with jobs and employment.
Well, that's an important point, because you're hoping that people will progress here and move beyond.
That's correct. It is permanent housing, so it's rental, but as long as the resident is desiring to stay there and stays within the leasing guidelines, et cetera, they can. There's no time limit to how long they can be there. But the goal, of course, is that if we take someone who is in need of these hands-on services and through this housing integrate them with that, get them connected to maybe Social Security or VA benefits, get employment coaching, maybe there's literacy challenges. We provide all of that programming, get them to a point in their lives where they don't need that hands-on anymore, and they can choose to stay if they'd like, but maybe they want to move to someplace else and provide that opportunity for someone else who might come to use that unit in the way that they had and have become successful. That's a key component of our mission overall.
And you're early on in this process, so there are some blanks in what you're going to do. You don't have everything mapped out right now, and you're in the process of you're developing the site, but you're also in the process of putting together your plan, all the elements that will come together to ensure that these individuals can succeed.
That's correct. The real estate is but one component of it. So clearly, it's housing. We need to have that constructed. We've got the funding secured to do that, to pay for that construction through Minnesota Housing, the VA, Home Depot has made a philanthropic grant. Leveraging the historic tax credits and the low-income housing tax credits, as we mentioned, that's one piece. But really looking at the success of this project, it's focused on the service side also, and ensuring that once they're in the housing we've constructed, the rents are covered, connecting with the services and the service providers are covered. So the staffing on site as far as case management or counseling or coordination, there are dollars that are associated with that, and they're not cheap. And so we're really looking into the numbers and finding out what do we need to have a successful project to ensure that we deliver those services to our residents, but also looking at what resources are out there. VA is clearly a very integral partner here, but their services are can only go so far. They have limited staffing, et cetera. So looking at where they can integrate with us, and if there are gaps, where are there other services out there that we can integrate into the site fully, so that we're delivering those services to the residents. And that's the key part looking forward is making sure we have those pieces put together so that we can start the construction and bring the housing online.
Right, and then our County Veteran Service Office will be partnering with you, and I know we'll be working with any number of the people who will be housed at the site. But as we discussed earlier, when we know the exact mix of people that we'll be getting, then we can figure out more elements of how to serve them.
Yeah, and it's somewhat of a moving target in that we don't know exactly who's moving in, but we have a general idea of what their needs are going to be, and we don't want to recreate the wheel. If there are things that Hennepin County is already doing, services that you can provide, we're going to want to integrate that and bring it into the site rather than us trying to figure it out and do it on our own. We want to make sure that those who are already doing it well are part of the team.
Right, and because you've got family housing including in this, then there may be the issue of ensuring that the children are in school, and should they need any services that it might be that County Human Services are serving the non-veterans, the children and the spouses who are here. So we're getting close to the end here. Is there one last thought that you'd like to leave our viewers with about this project?
Well, I think from my perspective and for Common Bond, it's just such an honor to be selected to do this kind of work, but it's also it's very clear to us that it is a challenge, and it's something we need to reach out to all of the partners out there and really make sure that we're doing the right things for veterans and not assuming that we know what we're doing. We're asking the questions. So we look to have those conversations going forward, and at the end of the day want to move quickly but not hastily to bring this project online as soon as we can, but in the right way.
Very good. Well, Andrew, I thank you for the work you do with Common Bond, and we wish you all the success in the world with this project. And I look forward in a couple of years of being able to bring you on here and have you show what this facility that at that time will be operating, what it looks like.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.